Hello, and welcome to Message in the Middle with Marianne. We all know that life is hard, right? It's messy, it's unpredictable, but it can be wonderful all at the same time. My hope is that we can take a deep dive into self-development topics and explore life's lessons through book clubs, conversations, and interviews. And together, we can uncover the lessons that others have already learned to help us navigate this crazy, wonderful ride called life. Hello and welcome to Message in the Middle with Marianne, and today with Kate McCauley. Kate is the founder and CEO of Danu LLC. She has a degree in kinesiology, a master's in education, is a certified health coach, and a certified woman-owned business owner. Kate helps women manage stress through building everyday habits to be happier and healthier at home and at work. She does this through one-on-one coaching, workshops, and speaking engagements. Hello, Kate, and thank you for joining me today.
Hello, Marianne. I'm so grateful to be here and excited to chat with you today.
Like many of us, Kate, I know that your big transition in life came to a head with a significant event. For you, I think it had to do with COVID and the way it impacted your family responsibilities as well as the work you do. So can you share a little bit about that turning point which led you to this work that you're so passionate about?
Absolutely. I love that intro right there. I should have you before I tell everyone what I do. That's really exactly what happened with where I am now. So I was an educator. I still am an educator. I always will be. Sometimes I have to reframe that for myself. But I was teaching for 20 years. And when the pandemic hit, I had been on a journey, which I wasn't even sure the direction it was headed, but I knew that I needed to change. I loved being an educator. I put my whole heart and soul into everything I did every day with my students and in the school community. But there was factors that I could not control. Administrators, leadership within the school district that I desperately was trying to change the way they were handling things and please help us do this. Let's change this problem. But I finally realized when I was home teaching virtually and out of that building and out of the toxic environment that I cannot change their behavior. I can really just make a shift for myself. So it slowly happened for me. The journey probably started in 2015 when I really had a wake up call and I had a gun pointed at me outside of my school building after conferences one evening. And everyone said, why are you going back there? But what else was I supposed to do? I identified as an educator. I had done all this schooling and my mom was a phenomenal educator. My grandmother was a phenomenal, all the educators in my world. You know, I was just, this is what I thought I would always do. And then when the pandemic brought me home, I was working incredibly hard. A lot of us teachers, my friends in the building were saying, we're building the plane as we fly it because we were thrown into this virtual learning and teaching situation that none of us had been prepared to do. And we killed it. Let me just say that. I think that we all really did kill it and we did a great job, but I was no longer experiencing the toxic work environment. I had my body telling me, look what's not happening anymore. My eye was no longer twitching. I was not having nightmares about my job. I was more present with my family. So I continued to teach and, I was doing all the things. And then the next school year was another educational adventure into 2020, 2021 school year. And that spring, April of 2021, my school district had made a lot of different decisions back and forth, and they had told us the final decision is we're home through the school year. I had made some decisions for my own children, which were all different, actually. My oldest was home. He was thriving, and he was a high schooler. My middle daughter, she needed to be back in the building. So she was in a hybrid situation. My youngest son was in fourth grade at the time, and he has some very unique educational needs. And I luckily was able to teach and help him in between all of the craziness of the educational journey. So when my district said you are going to be home through the end of the school year, I was okay, business as usual. I'm going to finish the school year, then we'll be back to normal. And my son's school said, everyone has to make a decision because we can't keep changing. What are you going to do? Are your children going to stay home? Are they going to be hybrid? Are they going to be all virtual or in person? So for the youngest guy, I said, you know what? I'm home. He's thriving. He is happy. I don't want to transition him in April back into the building when, he wasn't vaccinated. There was a lot of what ifs about school still. So I said, okay, you know what? We're good where we are, where everybody's staying. And then my district said, never mind. We want you to come back, not just me, but all of the teachers. But you're not teaching the kids in person. You're just going to be here in the building because of state testing. We didn't fill out paperwork, blah, blah, blah. So I said, no, I can't do it. I said, I will continue to teach virtually since the students are staying home. I can do this from home. I had to make decisions. You had told us this was the plan. And I think they thought I was bluffing. And maybe a little part of me was in some ways, saying no, because that's scary. But then they came back with, you have to be here. So then I just firmly said no. And I put my resignation in. I was already certified as a health coach and doing my business on the side, I guess it was. It was almost more like a hobby. I loved doing it, but I wasn't fully jumping in because I was comfortable in my education position and I was afraid to jump in. But then I had to make that decision and I put myself first. I put my family first and I've jumped in completely. I work full time now in my wellness company.
It's amazing how the universe just lines things up perfectly the way we need them to be to get us to where we need to go. It just blows my mind every time I hear a story. Something else you said that I want to hit on is you talked about having physical symptoms of needing a change. And again, it resonated with me because I feel like, especially as women, we often ignore that stuff, right?
Yes.
It's right there screaming at us and we just blow it off until after we make a change. I physically went through some of the same things and changed a job after 25 years and a whole nother show. But the point being, I think it's a common thing that we just ignore these symptoms of our body talking to us.
You are so right. I would love to yell that if we weren't on a podcast and I was on a stage speaking, I would yell it. But anyone who's listening, definitely, I can tell you that you're right with that. My eye twitching, people would notice it and they would say, Kate, your eye's twitching. It would be at work and at home. It was happening, and when I was out at my kid's game and I would make an excuse and say, I'm so tired, this and that. But I knew why my eye was twitching because in the summer when I wasn't at work, my eye wasn't twitching. But I just ignored that, like you said, and I kept showing up every day, putting a happy face on, saying, what else am I supposed to do? At the time when the gun situation happened, definitely in 2015, my kids were still very little. I couldn't make this big change. I was paying for daycare still, but now looking back, like you said, I can't believe that I let myself do that for so long. It's sad in many ways, although the universe did put me exactly where I was meant to be. I think every step of my journey has helped me transform women's lives I work with now, because I can say, I was there. I know we went, and every journey is different, but we can relate like you and I just mentioned. So,
yeah. And I do think it happens at the right time, although I'm fascinated by, and I often ask this question because I feel like I want it to happen to women earlier. I want us to wake up earlier, but I just don't think it's meant to happen that way. I think we need the experiences to get us to the right place. And
I would completely agree.
Yeah. So but it fascinates me. It really does fascinate me. So let's talk a little bit about the work that you do in this now full-time practice. Because it's coaching. I hesitated saying that, but you're also doing a lot of speaking engagements and that type of thing. So you kind of have a whole thing going on with this area. It's great. And so it does center around helping people with habit building and staying consistent with new habits and how to bring that into their lives to build a happier, healthy version of their life. And so one of the things I wanted to ask you is, can you offer up any tips around some simple things people can incorporate? But also, I'm curious, now that you've been working with people for a while, why do you think people struggle so much around doing this? So I guess two things at once.
Sure. I love both of those things, actually. So you're right. I do a lot of different things. And I keep saying to people, maybe I have to create a new term because I'm doing a lot of different exciting things. But when I am coaching and trying to build habits, I would say a tip that I would give to any of your listeners who are trying to create a new habit. First, pay attention to what your why is. Because if we can grab on to the reason why you want to create the habit, as opposed to focusing on the new habit itself, you will stick with it. Because that is the reason why everyone reaches out to me and to anyone for help or a change in your life, that if you do it yourself, you have some guidance. The why. So you want to lose weight. You want to be happier with your family. You don't want the eye twitch anymore. You want to just, not have that negative self-talk creeping in. Whatever your why is, that is really the thing that you need to hold on to. And you need to circle back and say, why did I do this when days are crazy? Because not every day is sunshine and rainbows. I love to tell people that because I do not claim to sell a magic pill. And I think that once we refocus and shift to that why and come back to it, it helps us build the habit. I'm going to give you one more little thing they could steal, because I think this is an easy way. So if you're listening to the show, if you want to do something, we just talked about talking about that why, but let's say, okay, now I have my why. What do I do to get the habit to start? Do something called stacking. Stacking a habit is when you already have a routine that you do every single day. For example, you always brush your teeth. So I hope you do anyway. And I tell my teenagers too, but most of the listeners, I think, are brushing their teeth every day. So use that habit and stack something else with it. If you want to start saying a morning mantra and make your day start off in a positive way, or you're starting a business like we talked about, and you want to get this day, go in strong, you have to believe that you can. So after brushing your teeth, say that statement out loud. If you want to write and pay attention to your gratitude, things that you are grateful for, stack a habit with it. You get out of bed every single morning. What do you do every morning when you get out of bed? Do you immediately look at your phone? Do you put your shoes on? Do you, get the stuff ready to go brush your teeth? Whatever it is, stack a gratitude journal with something there that you do every single morning. I have a client who she actually does something. She's more organized than me, really. She does an evening journal basically about the achievements of her day. And she keeps that next to her bed, but then she walks it down and puts it next to her coffee maker. And, I got to be honest, I'm in my bed. I don't usually get out of the bed, but she has made this a habit because she wants to cultivate that attitude of gratitude. And she has two parts of the journal, the achievement part, and then the 3 little bullets for her gratitude. She puts it next to her coffee maker. And while her coffee is brewing, and that's another one. I could give you so many little tips there. That's called a be better behavior. You could stand there and just do nothing while the coffee is brewing. But a be better behavior, just a little thing you can throw in to better yourself, is now I'm doing the gratitude journal while it's, the Keurig is brewing. So she has that down there, and that's a habit that she has stacked. She drinks coffee every day, and she now gratitude journals 3 little things every single day. So stack those already have habits with a new habit, and keep that why.
I love the stack the habit. We actually read Atomic Habits, right? And that it's in there and talks about that. And I think it's very, very effective. Mm-hmm. You also hit on something that, and I'm going to circle back to this book, but we read Mel Robbins' High Five Habit. And I loved when you said, after you brush your teeth, say your morning mantra, because, we actually did the challenge. And I do think that most of us that participated felt like starting the morning first thing with that sort of positive mantra, it really does set the tone to make you feel better for the rest of the day.
It does.
And then I want to go back to the one you said, wait, because this one I haven't heard before. And I'm actually doing one. I just incorporated this. So it made me smile. The be better habit. Yeah. So it's do something positive that you want to start implementing in your life, but while you're doing something else. So my example, which I just started, was I make a chai every morning before I come in and sit down to work. And I started doing like a wall plank while the
Love
chai,
it.
it takes 3 minutes to cook, like heat up. It's only 3 minutes. I can commit to 3 minutes at that moment,
Absolutely.
right? I
Yeah.
think that's great.
Yeah, that's your be better behavior. And then you feel great about it. You're feeling accomplished that you squeeze something in.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be, I think the cool part is it doesn't have to be a big commitment, right? It can be just a little
Totally.
something and you're doing it. That's great. So I said I wanted to circle back to Mel Robbins' high five habit because when I was doing some research on you and we chatted before, one of the things I really loved was I saw you do something about the reticular activating system.
Yes.
And I first learned about that through Mel's book and I was fascinated by it. And then, started hearing about other examples of where this shows up. And I think we kind of all know it's there, but we don't really understand the name of it or exactly how it works. But
Sure.
you did a great description of it. So can you share that?
Sure. So I call it the RAS, reticular activating system, just shorten it, calling it the RAS. I am obsessed with the RAS. And any woman who works with me, any speaking engagement that I'm at, I definitely always throw it in there because I pay attention to it. I ask my clients and workshop people to pay attention to it because it's real. It's retraining your brain. So basically what the RAS is that your brain wants to be right. It's looking for the answers. So when you tell yourself something, sometimes it takes some work and you have to commit to it and keep repeating it over and over again because you will have that imposter syndrome and the negative self-talk come in because your brain has been believing that for so long that you have to retrain your reticular activating system. An easy way to do this is, and I do this if you're on a discovery call with me, I'm giving you a little preview here, but if you just want to say, I want to love myself more and how can I pay attention to this? Look for hearts anywhere you go. And I'm telling you that your brain is going to start searching for that. You will start to see hearts on TV. You will start to see hearts out in nature, the shape of a leaf. You will look at the clouds. You will be going somewhere and you will be like, is that a heart? That looks like a heart. You'll be taking pictures of it. You'll be saying, my goodness, the signs are everywhere telling me to look at this. And that is your RAS. Those things were there before, but now because you are telling your brain to look for those hearts. And when that does happen, you will be shocked. And then you will keep seeing them because your brain says, this is what we do now. This is the plan. Same with the habits and when you stack it. And honestly, if you're not sure if this is real, think about a time when you and one of your friends or a family member were talking about a movie or anything and say, do you remember that guy in this movie? And you might describe the whole scene and both of you will be saying, I can't figure out what it is. And you'll probably say, it'll come to me at 3:00 in the morning or tomorrow. And then you'll text her or him later and say, guess who it was? It was Tom Cruise or whoever it was. That's the RAS. Your brain is shifting through all of those files, wanting to find the answer. And I want to go back to what you said to me, Marianne, about why can't people make these habits stick or why do they reach out? I know you had a 2-part question here. And the reason is because right now your brain is trained to think that you can't. You are telling yourself when you have a bad day and you say, what else could go wrong today? Is this going to happen now? Sure enough, sometimes it does happen and the day spirals out of control and you can't solve all of your problems with the RAS. However, you can shift the way you respond to them. You can restart your day at any point. And your brain has to be trained that you have these tools in your toolbox to pull out and use, and that is just what you do now. Because the reason why you can't change the habit, the reason why you keep feeling miserable and stuck and you're not moving your body or drinking water or eating healthy is because you're used to the habits you're doing and your brain is like, this is what you do, girl. Takes some work, but it is an amazing shift when it happens. I literally jump through if I'm on a Zoom call or a phone call, I'm jumping, my clients are like, calm down, Kate, but I get so excited when they say, Yeah. And then I thought, I'm like, there it is. There's the rest.
Yeah, well, it's fascinating. The example that gets me all the time that I personally have had happen like so clearly, there's been many more now, but before I knew what it was, when you're buying a car.
Yes.
You're buying a car, right? You don't know whatever kind it is. For my example, I always give it Toyota Highlander, and I never saw them on the road until I wanted to buy one, and then they're everywhere, right? So
Absolutely.
amazing. Like they just popped out of the sky one day.
That will happen with
It
everything.
does.
When I was younger, I, was thinking about having children. And then we were trying to have children, I think every radio station was talking about pregnancy and this and that and the other thing. And I remember thinking like, oh, this is a sign, and I was looking for it, same with the car.
Yeah.
They were there driving on the road before, but now you're paying attention.
And it's such a reminder that if we change our thoughts, we really can change our life, because when we start thinking differently and our brains start picking up on the evidence that's out there to support whatever it is we're trying to do, suddenly it seems feasible. What was out of reach before, we suddenly see the evidence that it can happen. And then the more you move towards it, the more that evidence becomes clear. It's just an amazing, amazing thing.
Yeah. What you focus on becomes your reality.
Yeah.
It really
So
does.
crazy. You alluded to something that I wanted to ask you about, and it's the inner voice we have, the inner talk track that we have within ourselves about, I guess, ourselves, what the expectations we have around ourselves. And I think you do some work in that space and trying to help people kind of figure out what that talk track is for themselves and how to get past that. So can you tell me what that looks like?
Sure. So for anyone I work with, that's basically called flipping the script. So when we have that self-talk, we have to pay attention to it. A lot of times women tell me, Kate, before I was working with you, I didn't realize all of these things I was just thinking and saying to myself, and I tell all the other people in my life, you can do it. You got this, children, coworkers, family, but that to themselves, they're not kind.
Yeah.
And that they just, have this negativity floating through their brain all day. So they start to realize they have an aha moment that this is why I am feeling this way. I am speaking to myself this way. So we do, in one of the stages of my program, we flip the script, and I literally will write it out for them. This is what you say. This is what you should say instead. And it's a simple change of words, change the story that you're telling yourself, and it can shift and have a major transformation in any area that you're working on. If you have a goal of doing something and those negative thoughts are floating through your brain, you are not going to keep working on that, because you're going to say, you know what, I think that that's right. You're going to start to believe those things, and it's not true. The answers are really within you. You just have to tap into it, push past that imposter syndrome of that you can't, all the shoulds and the guilt and the supposed to's of the world. You have to push through it. It's hard though. It does take work. I'm, not an expert by any means. I always say I'm a guide on the side, and everyone's journey is unique. I know how to help women tap into it because I did it for myself first. But, it's not, this is the way you have to do it. It's different for everyone.
Yeah, but it is achievable, and it really does make a difference.
Absolutely.
I too have seen it and done some of the work, but I think similarly, I think the work's never done. You have to keep doing the work, right?
Yes, you are so right. My program is a 3-month program, and not every single woman, but I would say the majority of the women I work with, they stay on for month to month, or they come back for what I call a reset. And that's fine, however they want to journey through it. But they'll say, I need to just check myself again. And it's always evolving, and that's a good thing.
Absolutely.
I love that.
Absolutely. But I do think the check-in, or having somebody that can help you be accountable to it, or a community that can help you be accountable, which leads me to, I wanted to give you an opportunity, because I think there's some value in there, even though we can't dig deep, your program, and you mentioned it.
Sure.
So it's called RAIN, I think, right? It's RAIN. Well, I say RAIN. I don't know if you say RAIN or just RAIN.
Yeah, that's a technique I use within my program. Yep.
Okay, so can you explain a little bit about that and
Yes.
within your program and your program? Just give us some highlights around that.
Sure. So my program is called Maximize Your Mindset in 90 Days. And RAIN is a technique within that program. It's basically steps, a roadmap to change your world. And I focus on the 4 pillars of wellness. So lifestyle, exercise, attitude, and nutrition. And within that, RAIN is a technique or one of those tools that I spoke about that you can pull out of your toolbox and use. It's really quick. I'm going to explain it to you, but I don't want any of your listeners to think that they have to sit down and do a whole big project to do RAIN. You can do RAIN within a minute. It's very quick. So I want anyone who's listening right now to imagine something that is going on, not something huge, but something that is mild to moderately a concern. I give an example sometimes that our sink was overflowing here and it was clogging for the week prior. My husband is the expert in this world. He is a steam fitter. He deals with pipes. So I had mentioned it. The sink is, filling up a little bit. It's draining, So then it continued to happen. I'm working from home. I'm appreciative to be able to do that. And sometimes in between, I'll run and do the dishes. So the sink filled up and it did not drain. And I could feel myself ready to explode. And this is when you use RAIN. I could have ruined the rest of my day. I could have ruined his day, sending text messages and voice memos like, are you kidding me that you didn't take care of this? And instead, I chose to use RAIN that I use myself and tell other people to use. And it's an acronym. And what it stands for is R is recognize, A is we allow, I is investigate with kindness. That part is important. And N is to nurture. To go a little bit further, recognize is simply, what is going on right now? What am I feeling? Yes, it's the sink overflowing, but what else is going on? And I note it. That's a technique that I tell my clients to use. Just note. You don't have to write it down. You can if you want, but just mentally note, okay, I'm overwhelmed. I'm stressed today. And I'm annoyed at this sink. I'm not saying that this isn't a problem, but I'm just recognizing it. And then quickly I move into the allow, which means you let yourself feel this way. Oftentimes, especially women, we want to say, I can handle everything. I'm going to bottle this up and push this down. We might not verbally be saying it, but we do it. And we act like I can wear all these hats and do all these things and smile and everything's good. Where really it's not always the case. And you need to allow those feelings. Happy and healthy doesn't mean you're sunshine and rainbows all the time. It means that you can deal with everything that comes your way. And sometimes things are not great. So you have to allow yourself, okay, I feel overwhelmed. I'm stressed. All right, let me let myself feel this, before I freak out. I'm going to just let myself feel it for a second. And really 60, 90 seconds at most, it passes. Then you move to the investigation where you dig a little bit deeper with kindness, almost like you're outside looking in, like a best friend looking at the situation and telling you, maybe this is happening. And you go a little bit further into it and investigate even more. My schedule is really full today. This is why I'm stressed. I said something to my husband, but I really didn't tell him how bad this sink was. Let me give myself, a little bit of kindness here and also give him some kindness, because when he was home, the sink was down and it didn't look like a major problem then. And I just was saying, the sink is draining slow, so you're investigating, looking in with kindness. Don't judge yourself here. It's okay to be annoyed. It's okay to have something going on where if it's grief or sadness, whatever the situation is that you're thinking of. And then that last part is really the treasure, the nurture part, the N. You simply just finish out the RAIN technique. Sometimes I say, put your hand over your heart and just say something to yourself, I see you. I love you, which can be hard to say to yourself, but a simple breath, something to let yourself nurture the situation. And then you move on from it. I dealt with the sink. I ended up texting him after and say, I dumped it out, but we need to deal with this tonight because it was totally full, and that's really what RAIN is. And you can use it whenever you feel like you're going to explode or you're really upset. I have a client who she is obsessed with it. She uses it with her kids and she says, I'm going to make it rain. She literally tells them, I don't usually say it out loud personally. I don't, but I am not against people saying that. And I chuckle sometimes when I'm on a call with her because she said, she'll say to her son, he did this again. And he's a teenager. So she said, I told him I need to make it rain. And she walks away, takes a breath, and she just goes through the, RAIN, and then she comes back and deals with the situation. So you could say it out loud, or you could just think about it. It does take work, like we talked about.
I think building that as a practice would be so powerful, but it also made me thought, like, at worst case, even if you're not great at it, it forces you to take a pause.
Yeah.
And anytime you can force yourself to kind of take a pause in the minute of feeling whatever, it at least gives you a second or a minute or whatever to kind of assess the situation. But if you can then train yourself to use that technique and kind of walk through the steps, definitely a powerful tool. I want to circle back for 1 second on when you were mentioning the 4 focus areas in your larger program. You said attitude.
Yeah.
Attitude's in there. And you kind of snuck that in. You just said them real quick, but attitude's not normally in. The other 3 are typical. I think attitude's not typical, but I think it's critical in my opinion. So talk to me. I know I didn't ask you this. We didn't talk about this before, but talk to me a little bit about that and why you think attitude is so important and part of your core program.
Sure. So thank you for asking that, actually, because that is part of it. I look at it as a table, and the 4 legs of the table: my lifestyle, exercise, attitude, and nutrition. You could be wonderful with your nutritional choices. You're moving your body, and your lifestyle. You're trying to, be positive, surround yourself as much as possible with people who build you up and empower you. But if your personal attitude isn't where it needs to be, and not 100% of the time, because it's going to happen where, the negativity creeps in and you have to deal with it. But if you don't have that attitude of gratitude and you are not feeding positive self-talk to yourself, you're really not as happy and healthy as you could be. And funny enough, that is the hardest part for every single woman that I work with. And it is my favorite part. My whole program is based on mindfulness, and the attitude area tends to be where we lean heavily when the women create goals and we talk to each other, and I keep them accountable. That is the area where it just comes up often, because so long we have fed, as women, I'm speaking personally here and for clients, we have fed ourselves this, I can do it all attitude, I'm strong enough, I can do hard things. And in many ways we can, but we don't let ourselves deal with all of the other stress and issues because we think we shouldn't. And then we have those negative thoughts creep in. I had someone who felt guilty about watching TV while her daughter naps, and like just that attitude around that and what she's telling herself, it's critical. And that is really a missing piece. If you are in a program or you're doing something for yourself, if you're doing all those other things, your table is not standing very well. Your 3 legs are looking great. And that 4th leg of the table, it may be halfway, or you don't even have a leg to stand on there. So yes, I'm glad you brought that up. It is very important.
I couldn't agree more. I think it's critical. And I think that, well, you already said that, like in the table, it's not going to stand without it. I think that having the right attitude really can make or break you. And I also think you're right. You're spot on with it being the hardest place to do the work, because it's all the things we already talked about. There's all these inner dialogues, these years of expectations that we put on ourselves. It's the whole bundle of that mess that we're trying to unravel that we have to retrain.
Yes. I have a name for that.
You do?
I just thought of it as you said it, when you said mess. I call it the messy middle.
Yes.
When I'm working with women, we are in the messy middle to get to that final transition. And it's not a final destination transition, but the transformation, and you start to shift and create new habits. It's a messy middle.
Yes.
Because there's, like you said, so many things that we have journeyed through that we have to pay attention to.
Yeah, we have to unwind. And I also think it's important for people to always remember it's not a straight line.
Yes.
And so I think, your point, it's a messy middle. Sometimes it's 3 steps forward and 4 steps back, and then 2 steps forward. And it's just this dance, and it incrementally you get to that other side or to that goal. And yes, I agree. I think the journey continues to go on.
Absolutely.
So this has been so fantastic. I just want to give you an opportunity. Is there anything about your program or in general, just any parting comments that you want to leave with the audience that we didn't get to touch on? I know there's so much more goodness out there that you could share with us, but anything in particular?
Sure. So first, much gratitude for having me on today. I love chatting with you, and I hope that your audience takes some of those tips and uses them, share them with everyone you love, especially the women. I can tell you that the women I work with use them and love them. So thank you for letting me share that, because I think this whole idea of mindfulness and wellness is something that is important to get out into the world. So I appreciate you letting me chat about it. And I would just like to say, if you would like to learn more about me or get some pops of positivity, I am on Facebook and Instagram. My Instagram handle is health_coach_Danu. Danu is spelled Danu. She's an Irish goddess, very much similar to what I embody. But I also, there you could find a link, and I'm sure you could share in the show notes.
We will.
But I offer a free discovery call. So if you want to learn more about my program, which is maximizing your mindset in 90 days, I would love to chat with you. Be sure to tell me that you heard the conversation on this show, because if you listen to this, chances are you and I may have a similar vibe, because when I had a call with Marianne and then we're chatting today, I don't say yes to everyone, so I really like to know where you heard about me, or, maybe you stumbled on me somewhere upon my Instagram or something. But if you listen to this, please tell me, because I like to tell Marianne, and I like to say, oh, well, if you listen to her, then you and I are probably on a similar wavelength.
This has been great. And we will put all your all your information, contact information in the show notes so people can get in touch with you. I can't say thanks enough. This has been a fabulous conversation. I think we could go on and on. So we may have to do another one.
We could. Right? I would agree. We could talk all day.
All right. Thank you. And we'll talk soon. Thank you for listening to this episode of Message in the Middle with Marianne. If you enjoyed the podcast, please take a minute to share it and write a review, as it helps bring new listeners to our audience. If you'd like to keep the conversation going between episodes, please join us at Facebook group Message in the Middle with Marianne.